few hours you have left, for he is nearly here.
See what Thanos has wrought. Together, we can appreciate the truest expression of my love.
Hey, Parker.
I bring the purity of oblivion to your world. The evil of human and mutant must be cut away. The sacrifices must be made.
I've been at the mercy of men just following orders.
Stand down, Rogue, please.
Where's Henry Gyrick?
I'm about to do to you what Limp Bizkit did to music in the late 90s.
Wade Wilson of Earth 1108 made his first appearance in Deadpool Merc with a Mouth issue 7. Now when we meet him, he's wanted for bank robbery, arson, software piracy, and of course stampeding pygmy goats through an orphanage, you know, everyday things that we always do. And then even in the dusty days, Deadpool still finds a way to cause trouble. He would constantly boast about him wanting to take over the town, and he had his sights set on Sheriff Fury and bounty hunter Logan. After getting shot in the head by Earth 616 Deadpool, our main Deadpool, the kid went down. But he didn't stay down, of course. He survived and was next seen alongside Dreadpool in the hunt for evil Deadpools in the universe. Number 9, Kidpool. Similar name, but much different. Kidpool comes from Earth 10330. Now he made his first appearance in Prelude to Deadpool Core issue 2, and he started his days out as a student of the Xavier Orphanage for Troubled Boys. Now due to his abrasive personality, he of course didn't fit in with the other super kids, so he was lonely most of the time. Now one day he was sent to detention with Scott Summers, and Wade convinced Scott that they should both break out and go to prom instead. I agree, I mean detention during prom, come on, that's just cruel. But in order to convince Scotty Boy to be a rebel, Wade promised him he'd help Scott get with Jean Grey. That ought to do the trick. While at prom, Kidpool caused trouble and even fought Logan. It was a hot mess. Mistress Storm stopped the fight and Kidpool was on his way out when Deadpool arrived and also recruited this Kidpool. And before we continue with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be great. It helps our channel out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thanks for your support. Now let's get right back to this video. Number 8, Dreadpool. In the reality of Earth 12101, the X-Men brought Wade to Dr. Ben Brighton, aka Psycho Man, in an attempt to cure Wade. Now they wanted him to shut down all these voices in Wade's head, but he didn't do that. He actually did the opposite. Wade was now encouraged to kill everybody in the Marvel Universe. And he started out by going after the Fantastic Four. Reed and the Thing were toast in just a couple of pages. Sue Storm held Dreadpool off by making his head explode, but once he healed, she was next to go. Dreadpool stole a device from Reed Richards that he used to take down the Watcher. So right off the bat, things get ugly. Number 7, Evil Deadpool. Keeping those sinister vibes going, Evil Deadpool is from our 616 main universe. He actually came to life during the pages of Deadpool Volume 4, issue 44. Now it actually all started with Ella Whitby. She was a psychiatrist who was obsessed with Wade Wilson. She was so obsessed that she would keep body parts that he lost over time. She would collect parts of him and then keep them in her freezer, you know, right next to the ice packs, of course. So when Deadpool found out about this creepy old cold collection, he threw them all in the dumpster. He just got rid of them. But that was a mistake because once those body parts thawed out, they fused together to make another evil Deadpool. Just the smell of that freezer alone, I would have tapped out by day 3. Number 6, Wolverine Pool. This next one is a total badass, one of my favorites if you ask me. Brief, but definitely memorable. First appearing in Cable in Deadpool issue 46, we see Wade Wilson after he's undergone the Weapon X program. He has a skeleton bonded with adamantium, and then he's recruited by Dreadpool to take on the evil Deadpool core members. So he joined the battle and killed Deadpool Pulp, but during the fight, main Wade tossed a grenade full of bugs at Wolverine Pool. So the grenade went off and the bugs chewed at Wade's skin, just chewed him apart until nothing was left over except the adamantium skeleton and claws. Definitely the grossest way to go out, that's for sure. Number 5, Death Mask. While I mentioned a botched surgery earlier with Wade, this next one went exactly as planned. On Earth 11683, Reed Richards was able to remove a lethal brain tumor from Wade's head, so now he was better off than ever. No evil voices, and now he was actually a genius. But did he change the world one revolutionary invention at a time? Nope, he was a master criminal. But still, he's smart, I don't know. He built an empire. Wade went by the name Death Mask and killed that world's Victor Von Doom, and his outfit was actually a red version of Doom's. It was pretty sweet, not gonna lie. Even after Death Mask was beaten by our main Deadpool, it didn't end there. Death Mask made a deal with Mephisto in order to release monsters on Earth, one of those monsters being Infernal Hulk. Ouch. Number 4. Dogpool. Wade Wilson of Earth 103173, aka Dogpool, made his first appearance in Prelude to Deadpool Corps issue 3. Now Wilson was a dog being used as a test subject for Mascara X, this hot new product that could replenish itself after just one use. How beautiful and lovely and convenient, might I add. Now this version obviously is inspired from real life animal testing and abuse that happens, so it's pretty sweet when Wilson gets superpowers. Now they thought the dog didn't make it after a test, his body turned all corpse-like, so they got rid of it. But those regenerative abilities brought this pet back to life. A circus truck just ended up going by and seeing this immortal dog, and then Deadpool became the starring act of their show. Come and see the death-defying hound. What a headline. He was working there until Deadpool came and also recruited him for the Deadpool Corps. Number 3. Deadman Wade. Coming from the Age of Apocalypse storyline on Earth 295, Deadman Wade was initially part of Apocalypse's Pale Riders. Danny Moonstar would just torture him non-stop. That was his whole thing. But that's gotta be a bit distracting, right? While the Riders were seeking out Avalon, Damask was so annoyed by the torture and the sounds that she strangled Moonstar to death. She just couldn't take it anymore. It's like when my sister would sing Taylor Swift, I'm like, a 4-hour drive, come on. So Deadman Wade wasn't too happy at this point, but when they finally arrived to Avalon, Wade's attack on innocent people was so much that Nightcrawler deemed it necessary to end his life. And he did so by teleporting away whilst grabbing his head. If you want to see Deadman Wade in more agony, begin so with Excalibur issue 1. Number 2. Ultimate Deadpool. Wade E. Wilson from the Ultimate Comic Run, Earth 1610 that is, made his first appearance at Ultimate Spider-Man issue 91. Now he had a pretty rough time when it comes to the Ultimates. The Ultimates are a different story, different origins, but Wade's is still bad. See, in Ultimate Spider-Man, Wade E. Wilson gets recruited to hunt down mutants on live television, which sounds like a pretty cool gig, but the government figured this is what the people want, and honestly, they're not too far off. People love tuning in. This is like the hot show. It's the talk of the town. And his appearance is even more shocking once Spider-Man unmasks him, and the fact that he does so on live television causes Wadey to go nuts. And it was even worse than that because Spider-Man made him feel horrible for how he looked. He said his face smelled like a KFC dumpster on a hot day. What a roast. Oh my god, Spider-Man, relax. And also in Ultimate Spider-Man issue 92, Spider-Man is about to be unmasked himself, but Deadpool prevents it from happening. He says to respect the mask. How ironic. Number 1. Lady Deadpool. We just met Lady Loki and she kind of stole the entire show on Disney+, so we gotta end this list with Lady Deadpool. Wanda Wilson from Earth 3010 made her first appearance in Deadpool Merc with the Mouth issue 7. Now this version of Deadpool cared, dare I say. She wanted to at least feel like she belonged and was part of a bigger, more important movement. So she led an assault force against the crooked General America, which was an evil Captain America in that world, and then she eventually found her place leading the Deadpool Corps, that team I've been mentioning throughout this entire list. In fact, Lady Deadpool was the one to tip off our main 616 Wade on the whole operation. Wade actually tossed Headpool at General America, but then he bit his arm off. Headpool was from the zombie universe, so Wade had to take the General's infected arm with him after he left Wanda's Earth. All the blood, all the arms, all the Deadpools, all the fun.
First things first, coming in at number 10, we've got an infamous Guardian of the Galaxy with Star-Lord, aka Peter Quill. While his intergalactic team may be most well known for saving the entire Marvel cosmos on multiple occasions, the Guardians also do their fair share of less than legal missions in order to make ends meet, with Star-Lord having spent many years as an outlaw on the run following his departure from Earth. While Peter Quill was already a formidable anti-hero with just his iconic element guns, recent Guardians of the Galaxy storylines have been exploring Peter's secret solar-themed powers, implying he just might be a literal Star-Lord. At number 9, we have Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. Originally believed to have perished during Captain America's World War II era adventures, Bucky was in fact captured and brainwashed by the villainous Hydra, turning him into the perfect weapon and such a deadly assassin that he would become infamous throughout the Marvel Universe until finally breaking free from Hydra's control with the help of his eternal friend, Steve Rogers. While he's since started using his lethal training for the side of good, the Winter Soldier is still a brutal opponent, and with an arm made out of pure vibranium, surviving one of his punches is something that his villains should definitely be worrying about. Coming in at number 8, we have Morbius the Living Vampire. Originally just a scientist named Michael Morbius, this blood-sucking anti-hero gained all of the abilities of a vampire, but with none of the weaknesses, very similar to another vampiric anti-hero, Blade. For a time, Morbius didn't have control of his urges for blood, and had to be stopped in New York City City by Spider-Man himself. These days, however, Morbius has attempted to turn over a new leaf and vowed to only drink the blood of the most corrupt and the most guilty. AKA, he's kinda like the Punisher, but with a bit more of a habit of munching on his enemies, making Morbius an anti-hero to watch out for. At number 7, we have Elektra, another of the most deadly assassins in the world, coming from the ancient criminal organization known as the Hand. And while she would eventually break away from her criminal origins, Elektra still found herself battling with her inner darkness and often clashed with Daredevil over whether or not to use lethal force against those who had wronged her and her family. After being resurrected by the Hand following her death at the hand of Bullseye, Elektra became even more powerful with several new telepathic abilities that made her even more deadly than ever before, and would eventually culminate in Elektra being the current owner of the title of Daredevil in the Marvel Universe. Sorry Matt Murdock, maybe you'll make it on part 3 of this list. Coming in at number 6, we have the mutant shapeshifter known as Mystique. Originally a villain of the X-Men who reformed the Brotherhood of Mutants in an attempt to assassinate an anti-mutant US senator, Mystique also was the one who convinced Rogue to briefly join the Brotherhood and put the concerns of mutants above all other beings. While Mystique's violent actions have calmed down in recent years, she still holds a large amount of power in mutant society, having been a brief member of the X-Men and now part of the leadership of the mutant island of Krakoa. But with her known craftiness and her abilities to impersonate the appearance of anyone, maybe trusting Mystique isn't the brightest idea just quite yet. Coming in at number 5, we have Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, aka the Red Hulk. For years, General Ross had been the lead military commander in charge of tracking down and capturing the Incredible Hulk, and had been a persistent thorn in Bruce Banner's side. But following the death of his daughter and the Hulk's exile into outer space, Ross was manipulated by MODOK and several other supervillains into becoming the Red Hulk, in case his nemesis should ever return. And while for a time the Red Hulk was a feared adversary for the heroes who remained on Earth, Ross would eventually see to reason and become a functioning member of the Avengers, being just as strong as the original Hulk, but with the ability to consciously change between forms. And he even recently gained the ability to maintain his iconic mustache while transforming, showing that even Gamma monsters can rock some stylish facial hair. Coming in at number 4, we have Emma Frost, aka the White Queen. Another member of the X-Men villains that have gone good gang, Emma Frost is one of the most powerful telepaths in the entire Marvel universe, even rivaling the abilities of Professor Charles Xavier. With the addition of a secondary mutation that allows her to harden her body into an organic diamond state, Emma would already be one of the most dangerous beings on the planet. But combined with her leadership skills among the Hellfire Club and her ability to manipulate the different groups making up mutant society, and let's just say it's a good thing that she's allied with the rest of mutant kind on their home island of Krakoa. For now, at least. At number 3, we've got to go with Joe Fixit, the Grey Hulk alter ego of Bruce Banner. The original Gamma monster that first appeared after Bruce's destined exposure to radiation, the Grey Hulk would eventually manifest as all of the dirty deeds that Bruce Banner was too unsure of himself to accomplish. Dubbing himself Mr. Fixit, the Grey Hulk refused to return to human form for months, and became a grizzled enforcer and tough guy for different casinos in Las Vegas. Coming to terms with this gritty and mischievous aspect of his own personality, Joe Fixit has since become a mental companion to Bruce Banner, and along with the Savage Hulk, is one of the personas that Bruce can now best rely on. Just don't let him catch you cheating at cards. Coming in at number 2, we have everyone's favorite hero that's owed money by Dracula, it's Moon Knight. Even before being gifted powers as the Fist and High Priest of an Egyptian moon god, Mark Spector was a dangerous and highly skilled man, a highly trained mercenary with a small fortune made from gambling over the years, and who fought during multiple tours of Iraq. After finally falling in battle, Mark was resurrected by the Egyptian god Khonshu, who offered to save his life in return for his service. Thus, the vigilante Moon Knight was born, an extremely capable and violent crime fighter, protecting those traveling at night, but also dealing with some mental issues and unstable personalities of his own. All of this combines to make one hell of an interesting anti-hero, and I for one can't can't wait to see Oscar Isaac play him on Disney+. And finally, in our #1 spot for today's list, we have James Logan Howlett, aka the Wolverine. One of the most well-known X-Men of all time, Wolverine is the perfect combination of mutant powers and vicious killing ability. With a healing ability that borders on making Logan completely unkillable, and the indestructible metal adamantium having been grafted onto both his skeleton and claws during the Weapon X experiments, Wolverine is one of the most terrifying opponents to face in the entire Marvel universe. And while in recent times he's become a well-respected leader on the island of Krakoa, Wolverine has a long history of amnesia and violent missions, and will often volunteer to take on the jobs that other heroes might squirm away from. And that is exactly what makes Wolverine our top anti-hero of today's list.
And in 10, Catwoman. Batman co-creator Bob Kane was a great movie fan, and his love for film provided inspiration for several Batman characters, among them Catwoman. Kane's inspiration for Catwoman was drawn from multiple sources that included actresses Jean Harlow, Hedy Lamarr, and his cousin Ruth Steele. Kane wanted to give his comic book some sex appeal, as well as a character who would appeal to female readers. They thus created a friendly foe who committed crimes, but was also a romantic love interest in Batman's rather sterile life. Catwoman was meant to be a love interest and to engage Batman in a sort of chess game, with him trying to reform her, but her not doing it. At the same time, this character was meant to be different from other Batman villains like the Joker, in that she was never actually a killer or evil, which makes the character powerful enough to distract Batman from what he's doing to want to sleep with her on a rooftop after they had just— oh wait, no, sorry, that was Batgirl. God damn it, why is this so complicated? Anyway, if a character like this is able to distract even Batman, there is no telling what she could do against the rest of the population. And at 9, Captain Cold. Leonard Snart was raised by an abusive father and took refuge with his grandfather, who worked in an ice truck. When his grandfather died, Snart grew tired of his father's abuse and set out to start a criminal career. Snart joined up with a group of small-time thieves, and in planning out a robbery, each was issued a gun and a visor to protect their eyes from the flashes of gunfire. This visor would later be adapted by Snart into his trademark costume. In recent years, he had added a radio receiver to his glasses, or goggles I guess, which picks up on police bands to monitor local law enforcement. Snart and the other thugs were captured by the Flash and imprisoned. Snart after that decided to go solo, understandably, but knew he had to do something about the local hero, the Flash. However, when it served his better interests, he does help out the good guys every once in a while, being crucial in the fight against the Injustice League by shattering Johnny Quick's leg, and he was reborn as an anti-hero in Legends of Tomorrow on the CW after helping Barry Allen out various times. And at 8, the Creeper. The Creeper is honestly just the Dungeons and Dragons bard of the DC universe. When reporter Jack Ryder was covering an experimental new form of medicine, the research facility was attacked by criminals. When scientist Dr. Yates injected Jack with experimental medicine, he was shot in the head and left for dead. The medicine though helped him survive, at the consequence of his sanity. Now nearly superhuman, Jack lives a double life as the insane superhero the Creeper. Aw man. The character first appeared in DC Showcase number 73 in 1968 and has quite a few powers, including superhuman strength, agility and stamina, greatly enhanced speed and reflexes, a healing factor, physically painful laughter, and the ability to climb on walls. I call him the Bard because he can literally hurt you by laughing, which is the closest thing to a real vicious mockery that I've seen, even if it's in another fictional world, but hey, either way, still pretty damn cool. And it's 7, Bizarro. First introduced in Superboy number 68 from 1958, the original Bizarro was created when Superman was exposed to a duplicate ray. However, as a form of countermeasure to explain his absence, Bizarro was relocated to the Bizarro world, a cuboidal planet that's kinda like what some people assume the Minecraft Earth to be, which operated under Bizarro logic, which meant it was a crime to do anything good or lawful. I guess technically it would be unlawful at that point. Bizarro ended up populating this planet with inverted versions of Superman's supporting cast and other DC heroes, like the Flash, who was incredibly slow like the Turtle! The 1968 Crisis on Infinite Earths event also rewrote DC's continuity, eliminating Bizarro World, but since then, 2 other Bizarros have appeared. One of them was a flawed creation by Lex Luthor, and the second, the longer lasting Bizarro, was an idea of the villain Joker, for some reason, who was brought to life by the cosmic trickster Mr. Mxyzptlk. But either way, on occasion he has worked as an anti-hero, but has all the powers of Superman reversed, so pretty damn powerful, but I'm sure a load of you aren't gonna consider him an anti-hero, so that's why he's higher up on the list. You say one person can beat the Hulk and you're scared to put anything else on the list for life. And at 6, Rorschach. First appearing in Watchmen number 1 from 1986, Rorschach is introduced as the only masked vigilante to remain active on his own terms and initiative, a criminal outlaw as opposed to the other former superheroes now covertly employed by the US government. A ruthless crime fighter, Rorschach believes in moral moral absolutism, good and evil as pure ends with no shades of grey. This compels him to seek and punish any evidence of evil at all costs. Rorschach is very resourceful and creative, adapting ordinary household objects into tools or weapons, such as the use of a can of aerosol spray in combination with multiple matches to set a police officer on fire, and throwing ground black pepper to blind another police officer during a confrontation at Moloch's house. During the series, he is shown to use cooking fat, a toilet, a cigarette, a fork, and his jacket all as weapons. He is also shown using a coat hanger as a makeshift measuring device. Yeah, not what you were gonna think. Stop it. This guy, while also not having any specific powers, is certainly a force to be reckoned with, despite his mental instability, but let's be honest. Aren't we all? Halfway through into number 5, Lobo. Lobo is a bounty hunter for the DC universe who is immortal and unkillable. First appearing in Omega Men number 3 from 1983, he is the last of the Zarnians, who are said to only be able to be killed by each other, but apparently Lobo is still different because that also didn't apply to him. Lobo is banned from entering either heaven or hell, so when his physical body is like too damaged, he can travel outside of his body, kind of like he's astral projecting, but he can't really interact with anyone living until his body is fully regenerated and he zaps back to it. He has even survived floating in the far reaches of space. Aside from that though, he has super strength and can survive without food or water, but apparently needs to drink a lot of booze, so there's that. But I think that if you're literally unkillable and can't enter either heaven or hell, that you're gonna get a spot on this list no matter what, so welcome. And at 4, Deadshot. Deadshot is often a hired assassin, regularly boasting to never miss. He is capable of using a variety of weapons, but is most frequently portrayed as using a pair of suppressed wrist-mounted guns. He initially appears in Gotham City as a new crime fighter, but is revealed to be an enemy of Batman when he attempts to replace the Dark Knight. He is sent to jail when Batman and Commissioner Gordon publicly expose his plot to become the king of Gotham's underworld, and after breaking out of jail, Deadshot begins just letting out his services as an assassin. At this point though, he changes his costume from the top hat and tails he previously wore to a red jumpsuit and his distinctive metal faceplate with a targeting device on the right side. The character, while being a villain, is also an anti-hero thanks to his work with Task Force X, otherwise known as the Suicide Squad. Deadshot has been a major figure in the Suicide Squad's last 2 incarnations, where his skills as a marksman and his disregard for human life serve to advance the group's objectives. So while sometimes not caring about people is a bad thing, I guess in this scenario, it can really help. Getting close to the end in number 3, Red Hood. While previously an alias used by the Joker, in the Batman Under the Hood storyline, Jason Todd, the former Robin killed by the Joker in Batman A Death in the Family, is revealed to have been resurrected by Ra's al Ghul via the Lazarus Pit. But the pit changed him and his emotions, and he became the new Red Hood. His debut culminates in a fateful confrontation with those he feels have wronged him. He beats the Joker with a crowbar, mirroring the way Joker had tortured him before killing him with a bomb, and later kidnaps him. He then ends up taking over various gangs and criminal enterprises so he can start a one-man war against Black Mask's criminal empire. He actively tries to cleanse the city of corruption, such as the illegal substance trade and gang violence, but in a violent anti-hero way, with a noble purpose but a misguided and bloody approach. After Barry Allen's involuntary tampering with the space-time continuum during the events of Flashpoint, Red Hood is shown, along with Arsenal and Starfire, as one of the Outlaws, a close-knit group of anti-heroes, still not above killing and still angry at the world. Penultimately, and at number 2, Black Adam. The canon version of Black Adam appeared only once during Fawcett's initial publication run of Captain Marvel comics. In the Marvel Family number 1, Black Adam is an ancient Egyptian named Teth Adam, who is chosen by the wizard Shazam to be his successor due to his presumed moral purity. This story is reprinted in DC's Shazam number 8 from 1973, which is his first appearance in the Bronze Age. While he is defeated in the same story in which he debuted, the DC version of Adam is resurrected nearly 30 years later in Philadelphia by Dr. Sivana's reincarnation machine in DC Comics' Shazam revival of the Marvel Family characters. Although Adam appears during the Power of Shazam's ongoing series, Adam does end up returning and announces that Black Adam and Theo Adam are separate personalities. Adam joins supervillain Johnny Sorrow's Injustice Society after Sorrow removes a malignant tumor from Adam's brain, but Adam soon betrays Sorrow, and he and the JSA defeat the Injustice Society. Black Adam briefly gives Flash the speed of Heru, enabling him to defeat Johnny Sorrow by hitting him at near light speed when he is paralyzed. After Dr. Midnight showed Sorrow a previously recorded image of his own face, sending him from Earth to just another dimension. So at least in the end, he's more of an anti-hero than a villain. And that's admirable. Or should I say, Adamable. No? Finally, in at number 1, Harley Quinn. While Harley Quinn may not be the most physically powerful character on this list, and she doesn't have any superpowers, she has the power of popularity, and that makes her the most powerful anti-hero on this list in a sense. Since, you know, she's so damn popular, nobody would even think about killing her off, and even if they did, they would have some multiverse-changing event like Infinite Crisis again just to bring her back. I can imagine a whole storyline where the Harley of every universe just dies out of nowhere. Like, they all have heart attacks or something all at once, and then everyone from every other universe, like the heroes of the multiverse, unite to find the being responsible, and then they bring every Harley back. That just seems to me like something DC would end up doing just because of her popularity as a character. She started off as Joker's girlfriend in Batman the Animated Series, and then shot up in popularity more than Dogecoin every time Elon mentioned it. And her ability to keep the popular vote after so many years makes her basically immortal, plot speaking. Or I guess storyline plot based speaking, you know what I mean, plot armor. She got her own animated series. The Birds of Prey movie happened because everyone loved Margot Robbie as Harley. 2 Suicide Squad movies featuring her as seemingly the only character that was back again from the first movie. The Harley Quinn is so popular, no writer is going to have the guts to kill her off permanently. Fans would absolutely just riot. I mean, they would do it online, but they would still riot.
Coming in at number 10, we have the bloodthirsty vampire Wolverine. In an alternate universe where vampires have launched an all-out assault on the United States, most of the X-Men are bidden and mind-controlled by the Lord of the Vampires, Dracula. Unfortunately for Dracula, however, Wolverine's healing ability allows him to regain his own mental control despite becoming a vampire, and thus is able to overthrow Dracula and become leader of the vampires. Consumed by a bloodlust that amplifies his already pretty frightening rage, Wolverine and his vampire army are able to wipe out most other superpowered life on the planet, only finally being defeated by the combined forces of Doctor Strange and the Punisher as a vampire hunting combination. Coming in at number 9, we have the evil Iceman hailing from the Age of Apocalypse universe. In a world where Apocalypse has taken over mutant kind and only Magneto and a few X-Men are capable of fighting back, the usually optimistic Bobby Drake was forged into a heartless warrior, giving him much stronger control of his ice powers than other depictions of Iceman, and becoming a living streak of ice that can travel instantaneously through water. This version of Iceman would eventually betray his teammates and ally himself with Dark Beast, and was only eventually able to be defeated by having his head shoved inside of a furnace. Which I guess is one way to kill an ice-based villain, but geez, that's a little bit overkill. Coming in at number 8, we have the brainwashed Wolverine of Earth 14850. At one point in the regular Marvel universe, Wolverine was captured and brainwashed by Hydra in order to assassinate the Avengers, but luckily was able to be deprogrammed before he did any real damage. On this alternate Earth, however, the deprogramming never took place, and Wolverine's killing spree of superpowered heroes was able to last for months. Armed with all of his incredible abilities, absolutely no remorse, and the addition of Hydra-developed teleporting technology that nullified even Wolverine's usual weaknesses, and this was a horrifying enemy that even the Avengers couldn't handle. Coming in at number 7, we have Basilisk, the twisted, mask-wearing variant of Cyclops. On an alternate world where anti-mutant sentiment is somehow even higher than the regular Marvel universe, Scott Summers' backstory is made even more tragic. Killing 7 people, including his own parents when his powers first manifest, Cyclops is locked away in the prison Alcatraz and forced to wear a mask made of ruby quartz to control his laser vision. The evil governor of the prison even goes so far as to mutilate Cyclops and remove his eyelids, making the twisted basilisk mask the only method Scott has to control his deadly abilities. A favor that Cyclops would repay by killing the governor and launching a prison break that would eventually lead him back to this universe's X-Men. Coming in at number 6, we're taking a bit of a break from the comics with the Wolverine symbiote from the video game Spider-Man: Web of Shadows. In this game's story, Wolverine has traveled to New York City to deal with a growing symbiote infestation, and even briefly fights Spider-Man when he believes the wall crawler is actually Venom. Unfortunately for Wolverine, he finds himself overwhelmed by actual symbiotes on top of a church and attacks Spider-Man again as the Wolverine symbiote. With all of his usual healing abilities on top of all the usual symbiote enhancements, this version of Wolverine might just be the scariest he's ever been. Coming in at number 5, we have the Ultimate Universe version of Jamie Madrox, aka Multiple Man. Multiple Man's powers have always been a bit overwhelming, with the ability to seemingly create an unlimited amount of duplicates of himself as long as they're generated one at a time. In the Ultimate Universe, however, this power was pushed beyond its limits when Jamie allied himself with the Brotherhood of Mutants and created tens of thousands of bomb-wielding versions of himself with no regard for his own life. While the Ultimatum event featured many shocking moments, few are as existentially disturbing as literal thousands of clones strapping explosives to themselves just to wipe out several superhero bases. Coming in at number 4, we have the possessed Professor X from Earth 6141. During the event known as M-Day, when Scarlet Witch wiped out most of mutant kind, the extremely powerful telepath known as the Shadow King was able to escape the loss of his powers by transferring his mind through the multiverse to the alternate world of Earth 6141, where he was able to successfully possess the mind of this world's Charles Xavier before the X-Men were even formed. Combining both of their telepathic might, this version of Xavier turned all of his students into perfect killing machines and placed them firmly under his psychic control, getting them to kill any superheroes who tried to interfere in the Shadow King's schemes. While eventually defeated by the team known as New Excalibur, this group of Shadow X-Men left their world shaking in terror. Coming in at number 3, we have the vampire variant of Storm, aka Bloodstorm. In an alternate reality where Storm was bitten by Dracula before discovering the X-Men, Storm came to Charles Xavier for help with her condition. Unfortunately, her bloodlust was too strong and she wound up feasting on both the Professor and Beast. Horrified at what she'd done, this version of Storm would eventually try and redeem herself after she found herself as part of an invasion force attacking the main Marvel universe. While she eventually bonded and made amends with the Beast of this dimension, her combination of weather controlling and vampire powers made Bloodstorm one of the more powerful X-Men variants that the regular X-Men have ever had to face. Coming in at number 2, we have one of the most powerful enemies the X-Men have ever seen with Brother Mutant. On Earth 127, a male variant of the Scarlet Witch, known as the Scarlet Warlock, attempted to cast a spell that would transfer Wolverine's adamantium skeleton to Magneto, thus giving Magneto an incredible power boost given his magnetic abilities. However, something with the spell went wrong, and the Scarlet Warlock, Wolverine, Magneto, Quicksilver, and the villain Mesmero were all merged into a singular being known as Brother Mutant. With all 5 of these mutants' powers combined into one villainous figure, Brother Mutant was such a powerful threat that a multiversal team of Wolverines had to be assembled specifically to stop him, just to ensure that all of that power wasn't unleashed on the rest of the Marvel multiverse. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the one and only Magneto from the Ultimate Universe. Unlike a lot of the other entries on this list, this Magneto variant doesn't have any additional powers or physical mutations to make him even more intimidating, but rather is terrifying just because of his sheer willpower. This version of Magneto is much more cynical and dark than the complex figure of the regular Marvel universe, and when he believed his children had been killed by Doctor Doom, Ultimate Magneto was furious enough to begin a global genocide. Switching the polarity of Earth's poles with his magnetic powers and beginning the incredibly controversial event known as Ultimatum, this version of Magneto caused the deaths of millions of people and dozens of beloved superheroes, and was only finally able to be stopped when Cyclops put him out of his misery with a laser blast to the head.
At number 10, Emma Frost. Now, when you see Emma Frost, it's not like you're just gonna be like, oh, she's so scary. But
her looks aren't what make her scary, it's everything else. Emma is a powerful telepath who can also turn her skin into a nearly indestructible diamond material. Also, she is known to play both sides. Not only has she been an enemy of the X-Men, but she has also been part of the team. So she's not only powerful, but she's smart and sneaky. Number 9, Omega Red. Arkady Rozovich was a mutant with the ability to heal and release pheromones that would eventually kill any organic life they came in contact with. His powers made him a prime candidate for essentially the Russian version of the Weapon X program. Because of this experiment, he ended up becoming super enhanced. He also has metal tentacles that can retract and he can control them at will. Now, this guy was a terrible person even before he became one of the scariest X-Men villains. He kidnapped and killed numerous girls over the years, so the fact that he became that enhanced after all that is a very, very scary thought. Number 8, Sabretooth. Victor Creed, also known as the villainous Sabretooth. Oh man, every time I hear Sabretooth or just his name Victor, all I could think of is this Hugh Jackman yelling out like, "Victor!" whenever he's angry. Oh man, I miss Hugh Jackman. He was so good as Wolverine. Okay, but back to Sabretooth. He is a mutant who was enhanced by the Weapon X program, one of his main abilities being his healing factor. He also has enhanced hearing, sight, taste, smell, and he can see in the dark. He also has enhanced strengths and claws instead of fingernails, and super sharp fangs. Plus, his bones are now laced with adamantium, so makes him even creepier. Number 7, Dark Beast. Dark Beast is an evil version of, normal Beast, aka Hank McCoy, from the Age of Apocalypse reality. In this timeline, the X-Men were never formed because Charles Xavier died before that could happen. And in this timeline, Hank doesn't have the support and guidance of Professor X and kind of goes a bit crazy with his experiments because he is working for Apocalypse. He basically experiments and tortures mutants in this timeline, which he kind of enjoys. And some of his victims included Scott Summers and Jean Grey. Number 6, Mystique. Mystique, also known as Raven, is one of the most dangerous mutants around. Why? Well, because she can shapeshift into anyone or anything. And not only will her looks change, but she can perfectly match their voice and outfit. She has caused the X-Men so much trouble over the years. One thing to note is that she can't actually take the powers of the person she transforms into. If she could do that, she would be the most powerful mutant of all time. On top of being able to change her appearance, she is a very skilled fighter and assassin. Number 5, Juggernaut. Kane Marco, also known as the Juggernaut. Now, this guy, you don't want to mess with. Also, in the main universe, he's not a mutant. He's just the stepbrother of Professor X and is powered by the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak. But in the Ultimate Universe, he is a mutant, so that's why he's on the list. So, in that universe, he has super strength, durability, speed, and stamina, and when he starts running, almost nothing can stop him. Also, fun fact, in the Ultimate Universe, he was later enhanced by the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak, which made him even stronger. It just wasn't his primary source of power here. Number 4, Mr. Sinister. While he's technically not a full mutant, he also kind of is. I mean, when he was transformed into Mr. Sinister by Apocalypse, he technically mutated and acquired abilities, so yeah, he had to be on the list. After being enhanced, he now can shapeshift, has accelerated healing, super strength, speed, durability, and telepathy, and he just looks super creepy. Number 3, Dark Phoenix. Coming from one of the most popular X-Men stories ever written, there's a reason that they have attempted to adapt it twice, is Dark Phoenix, who we also know as Jean Grey. While the X-Men were on a mission, they were trying to save a crew in space that were trapped in a shuttle. In order for them not to die of radiation, someone had to come aboard the ship and drive it back. That person turned out to be Jean. She could instantly learn how to fly the shuttle, but also she was able to shield herself from all that radiation. Eventually, the radiation started to kill her, and she cried out for help, and the Phoenix Force answered. It saved Jean, but while her actual body was healing, it created its own copy of Jean. She eventually went on to become evil, and with the Phoenix Force, she is insanely powerful. She can absorb and dish out endless amounts of energy, can travel through space completely unharmed, and has maxed out psychic abilities. Number 2, Apocalypse. Apocalypse is believed to be one of the very first mutants. He was born in Egypt around 3000 BC. He was born with gray skin, blue lips, and natural markings on his body. He believes that only the strong should be able to live, regardless of, if they're mutants or just a superpowered being. He's basically immortal, has super strength, teleportation, telekinesis, telepathy, self-molecular manipulation, ooh, that's a mouthful, which essentially means he can alter his own body almost any way he wants. He can also just grow as big as he wants, or he can shrink to be the smallest thing in the world. He can even shoot energy and absorb massive amounts of energy. He's just scary and powerful. Number 1, Magneto. Okay, so he may not be the scariest looking mutant, but trust me when I say this, Magneto is the scariest mutant villain around. Not only does he have the ability to control all forms of metal, making him one of the most powerful mutants, but he can also control people. And no, he doesn't have an actual mutant ability to control people. What I mean is there is a reason so many mutants follow and trust him. He has this natural quality that allows him to manipulate and lead people. He believes what he is doing is right, and because of that, so do his followers. They will do anything for him. He may be evil, but he doesn't come across that way. He truly makes people believe that anyone who doesn't see it his way is the enemy. Magneto just doesn't see himself as a villain, and neither do his followers. And because of that, he is the scariest mutant of all.
Number 10, Sea Lord. I mostly like this version of Namor just because I like his medieval and kind of Greco-Roman really garb here. Sea Lord is the medieval version of Namor who was created when Morgan Le Fay warped reality, putting all heroes in a medieval-like setting and imprisoning Scarlet Witch, who was one of the few who remained conscious that this reality was not actually the true reality. Eventually, Wanda, utilizing Wonder Man, would free everyone from Morgan Le Fay's altered reality and also defeat the evil sorceress. But until that happened, Sea Lord aka Namor, like the other heroes, would believe that he was a member of the Queen's vengeance. Everyone who had been fighting previous to the reality warp against Morgan Le Fay, now stylized as the Queen in this reality, sought to protect her as part of her elite guard, the Queen's vengeance, Namor included. Ultimate Namor. This version of Namor is not actually the ruler of Atlantis, but is considered a false king. In the Ultimate Universe of 1610, Namor is an ancient Atlantean criminal who was imprisoned and kept asleep for 9,000 years. Kind of like a mummy, but without all the being dead and looking gross parts that come with that monster type. Namor initially proved to be too powerful for the Fantastic Four to handle, and at one point threatened Manhattan with a giant tidal wave unless Sue gave him a kiss, which she did, and keeping his promise, he ceased his attack and returned to the ocean. I like that he was just like, I just want a kiss and then I'm out, so it's cool. It's cool, I'm easy to appease even though I could just literally wipe the floor with all of you. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you love Namor as much as I love Namor, please be sure to show your love by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Conqueror Namor. This Namor doesn't really have any fancy name, so I kinda just decided to give him one. So just so you know, this isn't like an official term or an editorial term, this is an Amanda term. He shows up in Volume 1 of Exiles issue 15 and hails from the alternate Earth of 1016. He ends up being defeated and likely killed by the Mimic of Earth 12, who is a member of the Exiles team. Namor here is obsessed with conquering and appears to have become king of Latveria as well as Atlantis. His goal is to win all wars against any who oppose him, continuing years and years of war. But why? Well, because he knows that in fighting against the Latverians, or any who still oppose him, it will only bring Atlantis more glory. Mimic attempts to talk sense into Namor as he has found a friend in the version of Namor from Earth 12, his own reality. Unfortunately, Conqueror Namor only cares about just that, conquering and greater wars and victories for Atlantis, and he will hear none of it. And so Mimic is forced to destroy him, although the Namor of Earth 1016 does put up a really good fight at least. Number 7, Hippie Namor. This version of Namor hails from Earth 71853 and made his first appearance in 2018's Exiles in issue 3. When the Exiles arrived in Hippie Namor's home reality, he sensed that they really needed to chill. He offered them whatever their heart desired to help them calm down, as they seemed to be wound up a little too tight. However, the reason for their mood was soon revealed after the Time Eater arrived and devoured Hippie Namor and his reality, destroying it temporarily. I say temporarily because once the Exiles were able to defeat the Time Eater, the reality of 71853 and its version of Namor were restored. Yay! Hippie Namor lives. Number 6. Emperor Numenor. Emperor Numenor hails from the reality of Earth 311, that of the 1602 universe. Here, Namor is not a ruler of Atlantis, but a ruler of what is referred to as Ben Asylum, the city of the gods. It's basically just Atlantis, as it's still, deep below the ocean in a trench, but it just sounds cooler in the 1602 universe. A city of the gods, you know what I mean? Here, Namor ruled Ben Asylum with his cousin Rita, who he hoped would marry someone soon. He himself became enamored with Susan Storm of the Four from the Fantastic. Unfortunately, he would be unsuccessful in winning her as his bride, as Count Otto von Doom betrayed him in their scheme, double-crossing and killing Namor. Number 5. King Namor. King Namor hails from the reality of Earth 6706, and here is married to Susan Storm, and together they have a son named Gambit, another son named Johnny, and 2 daughters, Aaron and Ari. Gambit is like kind of a blonde Namor in terms of his armor and his aquatic abilities, though he also possesses his mother's ability to create shields, though he does so telekinetically. But Gambit here walks and talks like the Remy of Earth 616, which is kinda weird, but I'm pretty into it. Namor here gives me a kind of ancient Egyptian vibe when it comes to his dress and his darker skin. I just really love this alternate Namor, and I think he and his family are super cool. I'm also just a fan of any reality where Sue and Namor end up together, as yeah, I kinda ship them. Like, I'm not well, I kind of am sometimes anti Reed and Sue, but I'm not anti Reed and Sue right now, but I just think Namor and Sue's a good couple. You can find King Namor and his family in the new Exile series from 2008. He makes his first appearance in issue number 1. Number 4. Aquamariner. Aquamariner is the amalgam version of Namor. He's a combination of both Marvel's Namor, the Submariner, and DC's Aquaman. I mean, of course, these two would be combined together. It just makes so much sense as a combo. He first appears in JLX issue number 1 out of Amalgam Comics. Being a combination of both heroes, he has both of their abilities. In this reality, Namor was once king of Atlantis, but was forced to come to the surface after the destruction of the city Poseidonus in order to protect the oceans from further harm. Arthur Mackenzie was one of the founding members of the All-Star Winners Squadron and would go on to join up with the Justice League X-Men, aka the JLX. Number 3. Prime Minister Namor. Although he is only mentioned in issue 15 of the 2001 Exile series, this version of Namor sounds pretty impressive, which is why I included him. And I personally love the idea of him as a character. I hope we actually get to meet him at some point. He is the friend of Mimic who hails from Earth 12. On Earth 12, Namor is the Prime Minister and ruler of Atlantis. He has brought about peace between the surface world and the underwater civilizations. On Earth 12, mutants are accepted and even celebrated, being treated as celebrities, as are superheroes in this reality. Although we never meet him, we do know that Mimic feels really guilty after being forced to kill an alternate version of Namor because of Prime Minister Namor's existence in Mimic's home reality. Number 2. Mr. Nimbus. Gosh, I really love this alternate version. People kept telling me after this episode came out that I really needed to watch this new first episode of Rick and Morty, and boy were they right. I love when two fandoms that I love parody one another or intersect in some way. It's just so cool. And this is definitely a case of that. Mr. Nimbus is Rick Sanchez of Rick and Morty's arch nemesis, and he was definitely created to be a parody of Marvel's anti-hero Namor. Namor himself is underwater royalty and is also known for being a very sexy and stubborn Atlantean, which is exactly the model for Mr. Nimbus's personality, who immediately offers the three-way to Jerry and Beth upon meeting him, and is very fickle when it comes to signing a peace treaty with Rick after he landed in his domain, aka the ocean. I also love that Mr. Nimbus has a horn that grants him extra power. While this doesn't allow him to control sea monsters like Namor's Horn of Proteus, it does grant him even greater strength than he had before. And it's definitely a reference to the Horn of Proteus, in my opinion. Number 1. Captain Namor. Captain Namor is the Noirverse version of Namor's character. In the reality of Earth 90214, Namor works for Tony Stark, venturing out to complete sea voyages for him on his ship, Dorma. Dorma for his ship is obviously a name that is a play on that of Namor's lover, Lady Dorma, from the 616 reality. It makes sense as a captain that his ship would have the name of a woman he loves in the main continuity, as most captains do love their ships well. The Dorma is a unique ship in that it appears as a fishing boat, but that's actually just a disguise. Dorma is really a submarine, which is pretty crazy for the Noirverse considering the time period. Or well, actually, did we have submarines back in the 30s? Probably we did, but not secret sneaky ones. Namor the Submariner captaining a submarine. I see what you did there.
Number 10. Thor of the Thunders. Thor of the Thunders is also known as the man named Donnell, an old man who hails from the reality of Earth 311, the world often referred to as 1602, which was created by Neil Gaiman and Andy Kubert. Thor of the Thunders was the godlike form that Donald took upon slamming his artifact, a wooden stick, to the ground. The Doom of this reality attempted to steal this magical artifact but was unable to do so, as he dismissed the stick, which Donald then used to transform into his Thor form. Thor of this reality is believed to be the god of storms, thunder, lightning, and agriculture. His very existence is considered very controversial considering the time period and the power and beliefs belonging to the Catholic Church. Number 9. Thunderstrike. Eric Masterson might not be around in the comics anymore, but when he was around, he was pretty powerful. He became merged with Thor Odinson for a time, and at one point replaced him as Thor as well. Eric was considered worthy enough to wield Mjolnir, but is also known for his own specific weapon, which also inspires his superhero name of Thunderstrike, based on the Thunderstrike mace. Eric died before he could even fully comprehend all the power that the mace offered. One of the most powerful abilities it granted, though, in my opinion, was that of teleportation, allowing Eric to open up portals to anywhere he chose, even allowing him to travel to other dimensions, or possibly alternate realities. Trans-dimensional travel capabilities are always super OP to me, especially when they come from a time period where they weren't as clearly defined, meaning that they could basically be as limitless as the story required. Them's the best time for crazy powers. The times when we didn't have to define anything. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more like it, be sure to show us by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Asgardian. Billy Kaplan as Wiccan is definitely ramping up to be one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel multiverse, but before he was known as such, he went by a different name and style. When he was just starting out as a hero, Billy was a member of the Young Avengers, and inspired by Thor, took up the mantle of Asgardian, styling himself as such. The name didn't end up sticking, and only lasted for a few issues before he decided to change it to Wiccan in issue 6 of Young Avengers, which more suited his magic-based power set. However, it is important to note that Asgardians are known for being tied to magics as well, so while Billy was just starting out and the name didn't last long, in a way his magics do kind of tie him to the Asgardians, who are also sometimes known for being mystical. They are mystical, cosmic, and mythological, but it depends on the story as to which aspect is more highlighted. Billy, as Asgardian in this Thor Styles, is really only being ranked so low for his lesser ties to Thor, but power level wise at this point, he's pretty off the charts. Number 7, Groot Thor. Groot Thor is one of my favorite alternates. He appeared as one of the members of the Thor Corps on Battleworld. Other than the reality of Battleworld, we don't really know exactly where he comes from. He could even perhaps be a combination of 2 alternate characters for all we know. Anything is possible on the patchwork world of God Emperor Doom's Battleworld. Groot Thor, however, possesses the combined powers of both Thor and Groot, presumably from Earth 616, which would make him pretty crazy powerful, as both of those heroes are capable of great feats. So combine their abilities and you get one strong and capable character. Groot Thor ended up joining up with Jane Foster, who is also Thor, in the rebellion against God Emperor Doom, whom the Thor Corps originally worked for. Instead of only saying "I am Groot," he instead only speaks the phrase "I am Thor," which makes me laugh. It's great. I love Groot. He's one of my favorites. Number 6, Rune Thor. Rune Thor is one of the alternate Thors who appeared on Battleworld as a member of the Thor Corps. His fellow Thor ended up turning against him after they realized that Rune Thor had turned pretty evil and was killing all the alternate Jane Fosters and Donald Blakes that he could find. Rune Thor proved powerful enough to beat and eventually kill, as a result of his injuries, an alternate version of Beta Ray Bill, also part of the Thor Corps, who was known as Stormbreaker Ray. Rune Thor, however, would also be taken down in the end by another member of the Thor Corps who was investigating the case involving the missing persons. The Janes, the Donalds, the missing persons. Number 5, Ultimate Thor. Thunderer Thorleif, as he was known during his Battleworld days, was the one responsible for defeating Rune Thor and killing him in the end. This version of Thor initially forgot who he was, and for a while in the Ultimate line, he was just a nurse by the name of Thorleif Goleman, who believed he was human. In the end, however, Thor would begin to remember Asgard, experiencing what others believed were delusions. Even readers thought he might actually be going insane, and we weren't really sure if he was really Thor or if it was all in his head, but later on it was revealed that he was in fact the real deal, the Norse god of thunder, and the real Thor in the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610. Thor was established as one of the most powerful characters in the entire Ultimate Universe, and even when he doesn't have his innate powers, which would later be restored to him by Odin, he has his EDI biomechanical suit to back him up, which grants him abilities and attributes similar to his godlike ones. Number 4. Goddess of Thunder. Jane Foster has been known by many different heroic mantles. One, she is a doctor, which kind of makes her like an everyday hero. That's like an everyday hero mantle. And two, she is currently a Valkyrie and was one of the last Valkyries besides, well, until the return of the Valkyries, which kind of semi-randomly happened during the King in Black event. But in between, Jane Foster was known as Thor, taking up the mantle after Thor Odinson was deemed unworthy during the original Sin event. In many ways, Jane was considered to rival Thor in power, and at times even bested him. She also took up the mantle despite having cancer in her human form, and despite the fact that transforming into Thor basically canceled out the effects of her chemo, meaning that her cancer was only getting worse and worse from her transformations. So even though it was killing her, she was like, I'm still gonna be Thor. And man, you gotta respect Jane for that. That's pretty crazy. Number 3, MCU Thor. The Thor of the Marvel Cinematic Universe became so powerful that he didn't even need to have a hammer to use his power. This is a Thor who realized the power was inside him all along in Ragnarok, and despite becoming bro Thor in Avengers Endgame due to, well, his depression surrounding losing Asgard and then being unable to defeat Thanos, still was immensely powerful throughout that film. In fact, the Russo brothers confirmed in a post on Reddit that Bro Thor was no weaker than he was previous to this state, and he remained super powerful, but he was just going through some stuff at that time. In Avengers Infinity War, Thor was able to restart the Forge at Nidavellir with the help of Rocket, doing the unthinkable and holding the iris that focuses the neutron star within the Forge open himself, which meant he himself was hit with the star's powerful energy. Thor held the iris open long enough to ensure the top of Stormbreaker at least was forged, which when you think about it and you talk about it, it's kind of weird. But when it happened in the movie, you were like, oh, that's nice. Number 2, Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill deserves a lot of respect for just how powerful he is. So powerful, in fact, that even Odin was forced to recognize him after he bested Thor in combat. This happened back when Thor, being separated from his hammer, turned him back into Donald Blake. Remember those days? While he was separated from Mjolnir, Bill managed to get his hands on Blake's cane and summon Mjolnir's power for himself, being deemed worthy to wield it. This prompted Thor and Beta Ray Bill to battle over who should possess Mjolnir, and Beta Ray Bill was actually the victor of that fight. However, despite winning, and despite the fact that the fight was to the death, he decided to actually spare Thor's life. Odin decided to acknowledge his power, seeing how great of a warrior he was, and made him his own Asgardian weapon to wield moving forward, known as Stormbringer. Also, Scuttlebutt. I just like saying the name of that ship. Scuttlebutt. It's a good name. Number 1, King Thor. One of the most powerful alternate versions of Thor, hands down, has to be the alternate future version from Earth 14412, King Thor. This isn't just because of his power as ruler of Asgard and Allfather, a power which Thor would actually rename as the Thor Force once inherited, but this version of Thor has also bonded with and wielded the all-black Necrosword, and was also known for a time by another, more powerful name and mantle, King Phoenix. This happened after Wolverine relinquished the Phoenix Force and thereby his life to supercharge Mjolnir in helping King Thor to defeat Doom, because that's basically what he needed. He needed the Phoenix Force to do that. Never fear though, after Doom was defeated, the Phoenix Force managed to later resurrect Logan, because that's how the Phoenix Force do. So even though Logan was like, I give up my life and my power for you, Thor, he still gotta come back after.
Number 10. troll. The series Youngblood from Image Comics is definitely trolling us with this one. Youngblood is a series about a government-run and endorsed team of superheroes. It explores the idea of a world where superheroes garner celebrity-like status, similar to the series The Boys and Ecstatics. The team even includes Vogue, a Russian model who later uses her fame to create a makeup line. Troll is a member who is beast-like in appearance, covered in muscles. Upon seeing him in his true form, one would immediately be forced to call to mind Beast from Marvel's X-Men crew. Because get this, Troll normally is covered in blue fur. Yeah. Though admittedly, he is often seen without it as he shaves his entire body to appear more human. As his name suggests, an actual troll. While also agile and physically strong like Beast, he does not appear to hold the same level of intelligence. Though he once wielded a terrifying weapon, a book that could be used to rewrite one's own history and can tell the future, he lost it in a card game. Wah wah. Someone smaller but just as fierce as the Beast, but with less intellect, sounds pretty scary and dangerous to me. Number 9. House of X and Powers of X. These two new comic series retcon and relaunch X-Men history, and although they operate within the world of Marvel and the world of X-Men themselves, I feel as though they are important to mention. When we talk about comics inspiring people, it is important that we also recognize some of those who were inspired are fortunate enough to do the writing and illustration within the realm of the world that inspired them. How cool is that? When we turn to these new Marvel series, we see at the writing helm Jonathan Hickman, who has brought us a much more daring story when it comes to the familiar motley crew that is the mutant heroes. In fact, he has even reintroduced some heroes that we may have forgotten. The time in which mutants fight for their rights, freedoms, and even for isolation on Krakoa is painted as much more desperate and bleak. Part of this is the beautiful artwork and colors created in combination by R.B. Silva, Pepe Larraz, and Marta Gracia. The writing builds up the high stakes, and if you want to feel that tension and see how ruthless these mutants can get, check out House of X's issue number 2. Number 8. Steeljack. Astro City has changed publishers so many times, I'd rather not list them all. Instead, I'll just say the series is currently listed as belonging to Vertigo Comics. More of a concrete jungle vibe, in this series we have different factions or gangs of heroes in the city. The most similar one to the X-Men being the Astro City Irregulars. Among the characters of the series we find Steeljack, a wannabe superhero who acquired the power of metal skin. Sound familiar? Steeljack is like a permanent metal version of Colossus. Originally, this character was actually a villain in the series. I don't know about you, but I would not want to deal with a villainous version of Colossus in any form. Number 7. Sarah Rainmaker. Coming to us from Wildstorm Comics, now owned by DC, is a Storm-inspired hero. Let's spread some of that Storm love. In the Gen 13 series, Sarah Rainmaker is introduced as one of a group of Gen active teens, think mutants, who are invited to participate in government testing. The group is kept in a prison-like testing facility before they escape. Sounds like some creepy X-Men gone wrong scenario where they get successfully rounded up by the government. Sarah Rainmaker's abilities allow her to control weather, only so far as air and water, though she can also fly and create lightning. So we're looking at a character who isn't quite on Storm's power level, but definitely has similar abilities. Other interesting facts are that Sarah Rainmaker identifies as a lesbian, and that her character was originally introduced as a member of the Native American Apache tribe. Number 6. Allison Hargreaves. Coming to us from Dark Horse's Umbrella Academy comic series, which now also has a Netflix show, we have Allison Hargreaves, also known as the Rumor. This story is definitely a much stranger and darker one than X-Men, in terms of the moods and vibes, and was written and created by Gerard Way, lead singer of My Chemical Romance. This connection is a little more loose than some of the others, especially if we are looking for a huge correlation in appearance. However, when it comes to powers and personality, the connection is a strong one, as Allison resembles that of another famed X-Men and Avenger, and one of my favorite superheroes, Scarlet Witch. That is to say, Allison's powers are that she can alter reality, not using chaos magic per se, but by using the phrase, "I heard a rumor." Anything spoken after those words by her that is untrue ultimately becomes true. Scarlet Witch has also famously spoken aloud some of her changes to reality, only to have them come true, though her wishes are not as connected to the need to speak as Allison's are. Beyond that, Allison is also prone to fits of hysteria and emotional outbursts, echoing that of Wanda's struggle with her emotions and her mental health. Number 5. Toyo Harada. One could compare Toyo Harada of Valiant Comics' Harbinger series to Professor Charles Xavier, save that he is evil. Toyo is one of the most powerful psionics in the world. Again, psionics are kinda like mutants. His powers echo that of Professor X, namely that he is an insanely powerful telepath who also has the ability to control minds, but who also possesses the powers of telekinesis. His goal is to recruit others with superpowers and take over the world so that he can protect it and guide humans into the next step towards their evolution. Yeah, spooky. Number 4. Ripclaw. A combination of Warpath and Wolverine, Ripclaw comes to us from Image Comics' Cyberforce team and series. His origin story resembles a horror story and echoes some of Wolverine's origins, which, let's be honest, all of Wolverine's origin story are pretty much terrifying in and of themselves. Namely, when Ripclaw's mystical Apache powers garnered him some attention from the Cyberdata Corporation, they used him to do their bidding as their agent, after brainwashing him and giving him cybernetic enhancements. Ripclaw is also a member of the Native American Apache tribe, like X-Men's Warpath, and oddly enough, also like our number 7, Sarah Rainmaker. He was granted mystic abilities by the spirits of his ancestors to take on animal-like abilities, similar but different than Warpath's Apache shaman spirit abilities, which he used to defeat the Demon Bear. His long black hair and red accents on his outfit also leave him looking similar to Warpath. Number 3. Silver Banshee. What happens when DC maybe gets a little inspiration from Marvel's X-Men member Banshee? We get Silver Banshee, who I actually think is an even cooler character. These two characters are similar in name and abilities only though. Both have supersonic deafening abilities, though Banshee tends to operate on the lower frequency, while Silver Banshee is perceived as operating on a higher frequency. And her sonic death cry is more deadly. If she can see you and knows your name and you hear her, you are dead. Though their names are also quite similar, Silver Banshee is known for being a villain in the DC world, where Banshee, though controlled by villains before, is usually a good guy. While Banshee is also male, while Silver Banshee is female, he did have a daughter who also had similar powers, who went by the name of Siren, before taking up her father's old mantle, Banshee. Though she has never explicitly been an X-Men member, she was one of the original X-Force members. Number 2. Psyblade. Also coming to us from the Cyberforce crew, we have Psyblade, who looks very similar to X-Men's Psylocke. Although Psyblade's powers are described as being electromagnetic, while Psylocke's are described as being telekinetic, the fact remains that both can use their powers to create weapons, with which they use to fight. While Psyblade is known for her electromagnetic daggers, Psylocke is more famously known for her telekinetic katana, among other weapons. And if you don't think there is some kind of crazy connection between these two heroes, then just look at them side by side. I mean, it's hard to ignore the visual similarities here. And while Psylocke's origin story is pretty frightening, I mean, so is Psyblade's, so ugh. Number 1. Lobo. Lobo actually comes to us from DC, and is stated as being created in an attempt to poke fun at violent and gritty heroes, like Wolverine. What? So there you go. One could argue that he is an even more violent rendition of Logan, as Lobo was also inspired by Marvel's Punisher. He is fond of cigars just like Wolverine and shares some abilities, namely that he is known for being super durable and possesses accelerating healing abilities. He also has a heightened sense of smell, which he often uses as a bounty hunter to help track his bounties. Oddly enough, Image and Marvel have even created parodies of him. A parody of a parody. Wow. Go figure.
Number 10. Carter Slade. The original Ghost Rider was actually referred to as the Phantom Rider. Carter Slade made his first comic book appearance in Ghost Rider 1 way back in 1967. Born in Ohio in the mid-19th century, Carter had aspirations to become a teacher, so he rode from Ohio to Montana. But during this commute, he was shot by guys dressed up as Native Americans. They were a bunch of white dudes, all of them canceled, immediately canceled. Comics are very dated now, so things like this happen and you're like, okay, let's just see where the story goes. A doctor named Flaming Star took Carter after that point and prayed, he chanted, he did everything he could to save his life. Now the secret ingredient was glowing dust from a shooting star that he had had from earlier and a special cape that he prepared. He saw the shooting star and knew that somebody important was going to come along. Okay, fair. Great call, Flaming Star. Also, great name. Carter's a pretty cool Ghost Rider. I mean, he carries with him these spirit guns, which are way more impressive than spirit fingers. Number 9. Johnny Blaze. Next on the list we have Johnny Blaze, another OG Ghost Rider. He made his first debut in Marvel Spotlight issue 5 in 1971, so 4 years after Carter Slade. Johnny began his mortal days as a stunt performer. He was great at handling a motorcycle, and Johnny became bound to Zarathos, the spirit of vengeance, after he made a deal with Mephisto to save his father, Crash Simpson's, life. You know, one of those classic scenarios we all get into. So now Johnny Blaze and his Hell Cycle control Hellfire and inflict it upon others that he deems evil with the help of his pendant stare. Nicolas Cage actually killed it as the Ghost Rider. I would not mind an older, crazier Nick Cage in the MCU. They can do it. Number 8. Caleb. Coming from Ghost Rider Trail of Tears issue 1, Caleb and his family were attacked one night and Caleb was killed by George Regan and his gang. Not a pleasant time at all, not a good origin. But then cut to 2 years later down the road, Caleb returns from the dead. Voila, how alarming. Brought back by some form of spirit of vengeance, in Trail of Tears issue 2, Caleb's friend Travis Parham returns and finds Caleb in his new ability to control corpses and travel through dimensions via Hellfire. So things have changed for them. The unlikely duo worked together tracking down other members of Regan's gang for, well, his death. They obviously wanted payback. Caleb is sick. He rides a flaming horse and he's got a chain. He's got bling, bonus points for some devil bling. Number 7, Robbie Reyes. Making his first appearance in all new Ghost Rider issue 1, Robbie was a young LA mechanic living in Hill Rock Heights. His area was full of gangs, so it wasn't exactly easy for him or his brother Gabriel. Now when Robbie heard of a street race offering the winner $50,000, he just had to compete. All that knowledge in cars, he's like, yo, I'm gonna smoke these fools. All that money too would get him and his brother out of there. So while he was winning, he was in first place during this race, he thought that cops were on his tail, so he booked it and eventually he hit a dead end. He got out to explain and whatnot and say, hey, sorry, I'm doing a race trying to win some money, but then he realized they weren't in fact officers, but it was already too late. They opened fire on Robbie and he unfortunately did not survive. When the attackers went to burn the car, cause evidence, they didn't realize that the car was possessed by a ghost and that ghost possessed Robbie, making him a new Ghost Rider. And of course he had to dish out some sweet payback. This guy's extremely powerful. I mean, in Avengers Volume 8, Issue 25, Robbie uses his chain manifestation and it's so strong that it ripped a Celestial's arm right out of place. How wild is that? Number 6, Danny Ketch. Danny came around in comics nearly 20 years after Johnny Blaze in Ghost Rider Volume 3, Issue 1. He was the son of Barton Blaze and Naomi Ketch. So when he was a teenager, Danny and his sister Barbara hit up a graveyard to get the real Halloween spooky vibe, let's do it, and also to take photos of Harry Houdini's grave. Those two things we always want to do on Halloween. While they were there, two gangs started to fight, one led by Deathwatch and the other with henchmen of Kingpin. So Barbara shrieked in fear as everything went down, naturally so. Deathwatch heard her, and then she was shot in the chest with an arrow, just horrible stuff. Danny grabbed her and took off. While he was catching his breath, figuring out what to do with his sister, he saw this beautiful motorbike with a glowing gas cap and touched it. He then became a Ghost Rider whose mission was to go after those who shed the blood of the innocent, such as his sister. Number 5, Alejandra Jones. Entering Marvel Comics in Ghost Rider Volume 7, Alejandra was born and trained alongside other orphans in a temple with one specific goal in mind. Why, to simply become one of the next Ghost Riders. Easy peasy. So when Johnny Blaze was convinced to give up the Ghost Rider curse, the Seeker was then resurrected to pick the next Ghost Rider. That's when Alejandra got her big break. She was first sent to Ohio to fight Skadi, the Red Skull's daughter. She lost, but still, she jumped right into the action. It was happening for her. She was a very powerful Ghost Rider nonetheless, but her reign came to an end once Johnny realized that he goofed up and he got his status back. After that point, she was upset. She swore revenge on Johnny, of course, because I'd be upset too if I had that power and then all of a sudden it was taken away from me because some other guy learned a lesson. I'd be like, great, I'm glad you're good. Can I still have that? Number 4, Ghost Rider 2099. Kenshiro Cochran made his first appearance in Ghost Rider 2099, issue 1, back in 1994. He was a hacker who rolled with a gang called the Hotwire Martyrs, residing in Transverse City. This gang was so badass, one day they stole encrypted data after hacking a fiber optic trunk line. Just as intense as a heist, for sure, just as badass. So while this was happening, in comes another gang, even more intimidating, called the Artificial Kids. The kids with a Z, of course, to make it cool. All these cool, nerdy gangs. They actually killed everyone. It was indeed a massacre. It was very intense. No jokes this time. Kenshiro, street name Zero, decided to transfer the encrypted file to his girlfriend during this, and at the same time hack cyberspace to erase all his headwear implants. So Elon Musk's future is basically confirmed. We can look forward to that, nice. Then he wakes up in this new cyberspace called Ghostworks. Zero was sent back to the real world as their agent of change. The machines created a Cybertech 101 warbot, souped it up with nanotech weaponry, camo abilities, self-repair, and of course, a copy of Zero's personality downloaded into his neural net. Very futuristic, different version of Ghost Rider, but still counts. Number 3, Red Hulk Ghost Rider. In the Circle of Four storyline, Captain America ordered General Ross to go after Venom, and while they went at it, Mephisto's kid, Blackheart, brought part of hell back up to Earth. Lovely. This all takes place in Venom Volume 2, Issue 12. And it's great timing because Red Hulk made an alliance with Venom, X-23, and Ghost Rider. They were all actually killed in this battle. And then in Hell, Mephisto did his thing and then offered the heroes another chance, all that devil stuff. And then all they had to do on their part was take down Blackheart. They got the Spirit of Vengeance and planned to get it to Johnny Blaze so he could become Ghost Rider again. So the Red Hulk at one point had the symbiote and the Spirit. How intimidating is that? Number 2, Frank Castle, aka the Rider, coming from the pages of Thanos Volume 2, Issue 13, the Thanos wins storyline. So the Punisher actually died a pretty random way. A piece of debris from a building fell on him, and then he ended up in hell. Okay, that's one way to go. He was pretty eager for revenge, so he signed up a few contracts with Mephisto, became the last Ghost Rider, and then headed back to the battle. Only the thing was, when he returned, the dust had already settled long before. Thanos was gone, the planet was empty, it was a wasteland. The new Ghost Rider was quite bored for many, many years. Even Mephisto stopped answering his calls, and then he started losing his mind. Galactus then eventually came along, and Ghost Rider offered the dead planet in exchange for another go at Thanos. So they traveled the cosmos together. How fun, little duo. They found Thanos, Thanos cut Galactus' head off and promised the Ghost Rider more evil than he could punish in 1,000 lifetimes, so Ghost Rider became his servant for a bit in the comics. Shaking hands with all the devils now, eh Frank? Okay. And finally, number 1, Ghost Spider. Coming from Earth 11638, aka the Perfect World, this Peter Parker has a much brighter beginning. Meaning Uncle Ben actually never passed away and gave the whole great responsibility speech. Instead, he just continues to encourage Peter to become a stronger Spider-Man as he gets older. A little pressure, okay, how does that affect this Peter Parker long term though? Where's the butterfly effect difference in this universe with Uncle Ben being alive? Well, Uncle Ben pushes Peter to abduct Spider-Man from other worlds and absorb their life force via this portal that Parker Technologies proudly created. Now eventually our Earth 616 Spider-Man shows up, they fight it out, our Earth 616 Peter Parker comes out on top with the amazing Spider getting his soul sucked into the machine. The perfect Spider-Man spirit was then trapped in the underworld, and then from here it only gets more strange. Literally, Banner at this time was the current Sorcerer Supreme. So he freed that Peter in his astral form, but Peter absorbed all these spirits of the damned while he was down there. So when he came back, he was now Ghost Spider. What a series of horrible but also cool events.
Coming in at number 10, we have Namor the Submariner. Now, if you just look at his record on paper, Namor has a pretty villainous track record. A half mutant and half Atlantean warrior, he's constantly fighting the Fantastic Four, frequently fighting the Avengers, and has occasionally kidnapped the Invisible Woman at least once or twice. However, as leader of the Atlantean people, many of these conflicts only came about as Namor sought to do what was best for his followers and countrymen, and has in recent years become an ally to the Avengers, the Defenders, the Illuminati, and many other superhero groups. Just as long as you don't do anything to harm Atlantis, Namor can be an incredibly useful and powerful friend to have in your corner. At number 9, we have the beloved vampire killer known as Blade. Born as a human-vampire hybrid named Eric Brooks, Blade has all of the powers of a Marvel Universe vampire with nearly none of the negative side effects. He possesses superhuman strength and speed, with all of his senses heightened to make him a perfect predator while being immune to damage from sunlight, silver, or holy artifacts that would instantly turn a regular vampire powerless. While he does still need the nutrients from fresh human blood to prevent himself from losing control of his hunger, Blade often uses a special serum as opposed to actually draining any humans. With so many strengths and so little weaknesses, Blade is definitely a blood-sucking force to be reckoned with. Coming in at number 8, we have Frank Castle, aka The Punisher. Now, The Punisher obviously fits the bill as an anti-hero, but is he really one of the most powerful? Well, despite his lack of actual superhuman abilities, The Punisher is considered to be at the absolute peak of non-enhanced human performance, with a long military history and years of physical combat training. However, the truly most terrifying thing about The Punisher is his dedication to his cause. While other heroes may shy away from violence and especially murder, The Punisher has no such qualms. And the fear that the Marvel Universe's villains feel towards a hero that's willing to get as dirty as they are, that's some pretty intense stuff and definitely deserving of a spot on this list. At number 7, we have Johnny Blaze, aka the Fiery Ghost Rider. After Johnny made a deal with the villain Mephisto, a demon that just loves to try and steal the souls and happiness of various superheroes for some reason, he became the Ghost Rider, capable of combining his form with that of a spirit of vengeance known as Zarathos. Completely immune to any sort of physical attack unless it was made by a weapon of angelic origin, Johnny is able to manipulate and control Hellfire, one of the most dangerous substances in the entire Marvel universe that burns not only physical objects, but the soul or essence of them as well. While he's veered towards the dark side with his hellish abilities several times over the years, Johnny overall strives towards redemption and using his demonic powers for something at least slightly close to good. Coming in at number 6, we're gonna have to go with the famous, or should I say, infamous, Deadpool. Originally a villain for the X-Force, Deadpool has over the years turned into a charming and fourth wall breaking anti-hero that's always trying to do some form of good, but sometimes shows it in some pretty odd and violent ways. However, the most notable aspect of Deadpool's powers and what makes him so powerful is his sheer inability to die. No matter how many times you stab him, shoot him, or chop some bits off, Deadpool will always bounce back with at least a couple of bad jokes. Add in his not insignificant skill with all manner of firearms and weaponry, and you've got an explosive anti-hero that you wouldn't want to mess with. Coming in at number 5, we've got Loki, and while he may not be the Crown Prince of Asgard, he's definitely the Crown Prince of changing allegiances. While Loki's motivations and goals have changed frequently over his vast history, with the only consistent characterization being that of a wild card, his strength and the level of his powers has maintained a particularly high quality. Combining the strengths of both his frost giant genetics and his Asgardian upbringing, Loki would be formidable even without his mastery of magic and deception, showing that power isn't just about lifting heavy things or swinging a magical hammer, but can be just as effective scheming behind the scenes. Plus, you know, being as handsome as Tom Hiddleston probably doesn't hurt. Coming in at number 4 is the underrated hero, the Sentry, an expert on being torn between good and evil. While I've spoken before on this channel about the Sentry being one of the most physically powerful beings in the entire Marvel multiverse, the most interesting aspect of his powers is his manifestation of the Void, an equally powerful dark version of his Power of a Million Suns based abilities. With the Void and the Sentry actually being two halves of the same person, and their internal struggle being so devastating as to put the entire world at risk, the Sentry has actually had the world's memory of him wiped on several occasions, just to prevent the Void's powers from being abused. At number 3, we have the Scarlet Witch, also known as Wanda Maximoff. Originally believing herself to be the mutant daughter of Magneto, Wanda is in reality one of the most powerful magic wielders in the Marvel multiverse, and a conduit for chaos magic that allows her to rewrite reality to her will. While Wanda may have been one of the most notable Avengers for a time, she's also struggled with her powers during events that wiped mutants off the face of the earth and brought her own children into existence through willpower alone. No matter what reality-changing adventures she's caught up in, Wanda Maximoff will always be one of the most powerful beings in the entire Marvel Universe. Coming in at number 2, we've got the character that personally first pops up when I think of the word anti-hero, with the iconic Venom. From Spider-Man's edgier looking costume to a bulky web-slinging supervillain to the lethal protector of San Francisco, Venom has held more jobs over the years than I have, which is honestly saying a lot. But with the recent defeat of the dark symbiote god known as Null, Venom has become the leader of the symbiotes and thus has one of the most unstoppable armies in the entire Marvel multiverse at his beck and call. Let's hope that Venom keeps on leaning on the hero part of anti-hero, because otherwise this guy would be a serious problem for the rest of the universe. And finally, coming in at the #1 spot, we have the leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants and the master of magnetism, Magneto. While some may know him as the most notable villain the X-Men have ever faced, labeling Magneto as solely a villain is simplifying his tragic story far too much. Having rejoined with Professor X in recent years and been a major contributor to the new mutant home island of Krakoa, Magneto's dedication to the mutant race is only dwarfed by the powers he possesses. Capable of altering the very magnetic fields that hold the universe together, Magneto's abilities go far beyond the he can control metal simplification that his name seems to suggest. Magneto was recently able to help terraform the entire planet of Mars, and the version of him from the Marvel Ultimate Universe was even able to nearly single-handedly wipe out humanity himself just by reversing the planet's polarity. AKA, he's definitely more powerful than something you'd usually associate with sticking to your refrigerator.
In at 10, Superior Spider-Man. During the climax of The Amazing Spider-Man number 700, Dr. Otto Octavius, otherwise known as Dr. Octopus, had been able to transfer his mind from his dying body into Peter's living one. Luckily, Peter was able to implant his memories back into Otto's mind, showing Otto that his original plan of ruining Spider-Man was not the right course of action. Instead, Otto decides that he will beat Spider-Man by being the best Spider-Man, a superior Spider-Man. As Peter, Otto breaks things off with Mary Jane, quits the Avengers, and creates Spider-Bots to patrol the town to find criminals so that he can either beat them to a pulp or maybe even kill them. But they used facial recognition software, meaning that the Green Goblin was able to avoid the gaze of the bots and create a massive goblin army under Otto's watch. After the girl he had fallen for as Peter gets kidnapped by the Goblin, Otto realizes that Peter is the only one able to stop him, so he gives his life for Peter to regain control. That's pretty honorable, in all honesty, despite all the things he did. In at 9, Oscar the Grouch. Okay, before you yell at me, he's only here because while searching for people to put on this list, I visited the list of anti-heroes wiki page, and they had Oscar the Grouch listed. Now, he isn't a new character, but it's sure as hell new to me to consider him an anti-hero. How is he even an anti-hero? Because he's teaching you about the alphabet, but doing it by stealing it from the Alpha Bank? Like what? I have no idea what to think about this. If you don't know Oscar, that's him behind me. He's a green monster from the show Sesame Street, and he lives in a garbage can because he loves trash. Looking at my girlfriend's dating history, so did she. But he's just a guy who hates everything but loves trash, and I think we can all relate. Not the trash thing, but hating everything and never wanting to leave your house that is still an absolute mess. Totally relatable. But seriously, how is Oscar considered an anti-hero? I don't get it. And at 8, Anti-Venom. Anti-Venom's first appearance was in New Ways to Die, a story from The Amazing Spider-Man number 569. Nice. Where Eddie Brock gets a job at the soup kitchen, with his boss being Martin Lee. Lee secretly cures Brock of his cancer using his life force abilities, and Eddie just thinks it's a miracle. At some point after this, Eddie gets attacked by the Venom at the time, because the symbiote wanted to reunite with Brock. But due to the way his cancer was cured, his skin becomes corrosive to the symbiote, essentially becoming poison to the touch. This causes Brock to be taken by a new white symbiote, when the remainder of Venom merges with his white blood cells. The second host we see is attending a self-help seminar for villains. We are unsure as to whether this anti-Venom was a symbiote or just a dude in a costume, but the speech bubble used suggests that he is indeed a symbiote. During the Venom Inc. arc, the anti-Venom symbiote was used to create a cure for Venom's toxic shock syndrome, which then caused Venom to bind with Flash Thompson, who thanks to the serum recreated anti-Venom. And at 7, the Winchester brothers. Sam and Dean Winchester from Supernatural are the very definition of anti-heroes. Their family has been saving people and hunting things for countless years, ever since their mother died after making a deal with a demon to help her future husband stay alive. Because after that, her husband and sons spent their lives hunting vampires, wendigos, demons, werewolves, changelings, you name it, and they've hunted it. But the way they see things, most of the time at least, is that the only way to stop these things is to kill them. And while to us viewers that makes sense, other characters on the show that aren't hunting monsters see them as serial killers who will do what they want and get away with it. Even when they've been arrested or have been impersonated by some form of shapeshifter, Sam and Dean always make it out, even if one or the other ends up dying every season. They make it out of that too, which is weird and screwed up, especially when Dean was being tortured in hell, and then Sam had no soul. What? And at 6, Rorschach. While the character of Rorschach may not be new, and neither are the inkblot tests he's based on, the version of the character that has been tied into the DC universe, Reggie Long, had linked Watchmen to the main DC universe in 2017 with the Doomsday Clock miniseries that ran from November 22nd, 2017 to December 18th, 2019. Watchmen is a group of characters, but many assume or consider Rorschach to be the protagonist, since he really drives the plot forward and serves as the series narrator. As a vigilante, Rorschach believes in moral absolutes, as if there is a clear good and evil and you are either one or the other, no gray areas, no shades of gray, and definitely not 50 of them. The mask he wears consists of a Rorschach inkblot test that is always changing with his breath. This is also how he got his name. But it also helps to convey his sense of morality, where everything is black and white, and it's conveyed even better because as the inkblot changes, it doesn't start gray and fade, it is always either black or white. Halfway through at number 5, Gorilla Grodd. Gorilla Grodd is a villain, I know, but in reference to the Arrowverse, this character might be turning over a new leaf. So, spoilers if you aren't caught up on The Flash until episode 15 of season 6. In this episode titled Grodd Friended Me, a play on the name of another television series, God Friended Me, Grodd is able to tap into Barry's mind and bring him into his. While Grodd has Barry trapped in his mind, he asks for help escaping, since they put him in a permanent coma, cutting off his higher brain function at Argus in order to protect everyone, because you know, it's Gorilla Grodd, with the use of King Shark's crown which they had modified. Grodd says that he has had time to think, and that while he has done some terrible things, he regrets them and wishes to return to Gorilla City, which is now on Earth Prime thanks to Crisis. Grodd's mind was also not affected by Crisis, meaning he has all memories of what he had done on Earth 1, and he also mentions this, saying he knows about the Crisis. Barry ends up eventually helping him, even merging their minds and giving Grodd his powers temporarily while in his mind, defeating the Gatekeeper and escaping his mind prison. So now that Grodd seems to be on the up and up, we may see him as an ally to Team Flash in the future. Also, Flash Grodd was badass. In at 4, Harvey Specter. Harvey Specter is a character from the television show Suits, which began airing back in 2011. While he may not be a comic character, Harvey is for sure what we can classify as an anti-hero. His questionable methods started in episode 1, where he hired a guy who came into his office running from the cops with a briefcase full of an illegal substance. Weed. This kid that he hired also didn't have a law degree or a license, meaning that it was illegal for him to practice law. While this may be a constant drama point for the series, Harvey has done some pretty shady things to get what was right done in the past, such as forging documents with the help of this fraud, blackmail, obstruction of justice in order for his secretary to get away with a crime. He's beaten people and threatened them, all within the 5 seasons I'm currently on. While Harvey is always fighting the good fight, he does compromise his morals constantly for either the good of the firm, himself, Mike Ross, the fraud he hired, or his client, even if he can tell the client is guilty because it's his job. He is literally the definition of an anti-hero. And at 3, Young Cable. Kid Cable was set up back in Cable 157, which revealed that Cable is a complex time-space event on his own. The timeline has changed around Cable countless times, and because of this, history is full of different versions of Ascani. This became a major part of the Extermination event, which introduced Young Cable, whose job it was to correct the timeline and send all the new X-Men back to their own times. The very first thing he did, however, was kill the old Cable, since the young version believed he should have sent them back a long time ago. Ever since this time, Young Cable has become very important, since he not only returned all the X-Men to their own time, but he used a part of the Phoenix Force to resurrect Scott Summers, since he died due to the exposure to the Inhumans' Terrigen Mist. Not only is this new since the Extermination event ended in December of 2018, but it also is a new version of Cable, not only to the readers and other characters, but to this world. It's a newer version of Cable than the one we've been seeing, because he was basically born yesterday in comparison. And at 2, Rick Sanchez. Rick Sanchez is the main protagonist and one of the title characters of the animated comedy Rick and Morty, which airs on Adult Swim. He is a super genius scientist who is a reckless, nihilistic alcoholic who's constantly bringing his grandson Morty on adventures to other planets, dimensions, and even worse. Not much is known about his life before returning to his daughter after abandoning her for 20 years. But what is known is that Rick considers nothing important. He thinks that since what's happening here is happening on an infinite amount of planets, nothing means anything. So he is constantly willing to steal, vandalize, kidnap, torture, and especially kill his enemies, his friends, or even himself. As we see in the episode Who's Purging Now, we even see him drag his 15-year-old grandson along in his terrible ideals by bringing him to a world where they have a purge, and constantly pushing Morty to kill people, and once Morty starts, he can't stop, forcing Rick to need to stop him since now he regrets his actions. And don't even get me started on the whole soul bonding thing with Morty's dragon, that was just the worst. Oh, and Morty's mind busters, and there's a lot of evidence. There has only been 2 times where we've seen Rick deal with something he couldn't handle, be it the adventure where he had no control over the situation, or whatever it was the cat did. Oh god. Finally, in at number 1, Agent Anti-Venom. Flash Thompson became the new Venom when he was enlisted into Project Rebirth 2.0, where he bonded with the Venom symbiote. When all of Manhattan caught a virus that gave them all spider powers, the military in charge of Project Rebirth sent in Agent Venom to stop the Spider King from breaching quarantine. After the symbiote had been separated from him, he was doing everything he could to get it back, but after finding it, it tried to attach itself to two separate hosts. Spider-Man, in an attempt to kill the symbiote, poured the anti-venom serum onto it, but instead it separated and created a new anti-venom symbiote which bonded with Flash. This all happened in February of 2018. Agent Anti-Venom is one of the coolest symbiotes to ever exist on Earth 616. I think Anti-Venom is awesome, but Agent Anti-Venom is just that much cooler.